So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Apurva Bhandari. Thank you for joining us. In today's day and time, global warming.
Hey, Anupam, it's pleasure and thanks for having me here. People talk about planting million trees in an hour, but then we don't know how many of them have survived next year.
Warming has become the buzzword that resonates with many aspects of our life.
I was born and raised in Uttarakhand, Himalayas. Large problem, not for only India, but then globally, how that challenge is emerging.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the APS podcast. My name is Anupam Singh, and I will be your host today. In today's day and time, global warming has become the buzzword that resonates with many aspects of our lives, be it corporate citizenship, government policy, global agendas, or simply a topic of conversations on all the major platforms. Almost everyone wants something to be done about it. So, whilst large corporations and government agencies are working on a range of initiatives across the globe towards their carbon footprint reduction commitments, there are many unsung heroes amongst us whose actions and commitment towards Mother Nature have delivered results that you and I cannot fathom. One such unsung hero is Mr. Apurva Bhandari, and it is my honor and privilege to be able to share his story through this podcast today. Mr. Apurva Bhandari is the founder of Sankalptaru Foundation, a tech-enabled not-profit organization whose mission is to promote sustainable development and preserve the natural environment through community engagement, education, and implementing innovative techniques. The ideology of Sankalptaru Foundation caught the attention of me and my wife a few years ago when we were looking for an NGO that could help us honor the memories of our late grandparents. Many thoughts came to mind. We explored many NGOs and what they stood for. But the one that struck a chord was the idea of planting trees while doing our bit for the planet and serving the community at the same time. Sounds very noble, isn't it? Well, today's episode is all about this wonderful foundation and its founder, Mr. Apurva Bhandari. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Apurva Bhandari. Hello, sir. Apurva, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Anupam, it's pleasure and thanks for having me here.
So, how is your day going so far? How are you feeling?
So my day started quite early today and in fact done with few plantation activities. So good so far.
Nice. So first of all, sir, thank you. Really honored to have you here. I've been meaning to have a chat with you for a very long time. And just for the sake of the audience, I've been following your work for almost 3 years now. And you're one of the few people I actually admire because you are one of those unsung heroes that people don't talk about. And I actually admire people who do such work without seeking the limelight, right? So you are a very good example of a personality like that. You've been doing such great work, and I thought it might be opportune just to understand your story, see what motivated you to get here. So thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. And I understand it's a Sunday, so double thank you for being here.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Anupam, for the kind introduction. And then I'm absolutely looking forward to a very fruitful conversation with you.
So, sir, we'll jump straight into the questions, if that's okay with you. So, we'll start with the basics, right? Like, I know I've known you since college days, but we haven't been in touch for a very long time. And now we are getting introduced to this professional sort of channel. So, do you mind telling us a bit more about yourself and, just walking us through your journey so far? And I understand that you worked in the US for a bit and then decided to come back to India. What was the motivation behind that decision?
Okay. So I was born and raised in Uttarakhand, Himalayas, in the hills. And then probably that's where my love and affection towards Mother Nature grew up. And so I was always inclined towards nature and environmental conservation. But then, yes, to pursue my studies or then, further professional journey as part of it, I probably moved away from nature. That's what I felt. Then, yes, chasing my big Western dream, I was then US for a while working there. But then, certainly, I always wanted to get connected to people and nature at some point of time. So I thought, let me end up my parikrama and then come back to India and then work for the cause, get connected, reconnected with the people and society and nature. And that's where I believe Sankalptaru was conceived. So that's all about myself and the journey initially.
I'm pretty sure you're being too humble here, but let me dig a bit deeper right now. So what made you think of Sankalptaru? You kind of gave me the idea that your upbringing in the mountains and your affinity towards nature was obviously one of the key driving factors. So what made you realize, what was the turning point in your professional journey when you thought, no, that's it, I had enough, I need to go back to my roots and I need to do something meaningful?
Okay. So there were maybe a couple of reasons. I would just list them out. So one obviously is the way environmental degradation was taking place, right? The way climate change is becoming a very large problem, not for only India, but then globally, how that challenge is emerging. That's one. I thought, what could be our bit or my bit that way to fight against it. Second is, conventionally, if you look at non-profits, especially in India, um, they were working very traditionally. There was very less technological implementation or adoption of technology in their operations. So way back in 2012, I'm talking about more than a decade back, 12 years back, when in India the e-trailing companies like Flipkart and all, they were only selling novels or books. That time it was just picking up. The internet penetration was really picking up here in India. I thought if we can use technology as an enabler, which can really make it people's movement, this particular afforestation activity. If we can make it a people's movement, use technology, leverage technology in the process, which can bring transparency and visibility in the process, that would be really great and impactful. So that was something, basically my passion towards technology and then using that technology for a cause. So probably these two were the deciding factors and made me to take a plunge and try something with technology and for the cause. So that's how Sankalptaru started.
That's brilliant, sir. I mean, one of the things that for me that resonated with Sankalptaru was I was looking to honor my ancestors. Like my grandfather had passed away and my wife's grandmother had passed away, and we just wanted to honor their memory. So we were looking for something to do. Like I had things like, I wanted to do a scholarship or some kind of plaque or put a bench in the park, but they sounded really cliche and like, it's not sounding like something that I'm honoring them. All of a sudden I bumped into Sankalptaru. And then I saw how your initiative was not only protecting the environment, but it was also helping people earn a living. Like your foundation helps farmers to earn a living by planting fruit-bearing trees, for example, right? And that to me was an amazing notion altogether. I was like, I'm not. This is something that ticking all the boxes. It's like A, we are serving the environment, and B, we are serving the community also. Plus, we are actually supporting the livelihood of people in specific demographics. Now, that to me personally is like true public service, if I can say that, right? Now, yes, we became like a small medium by obviously donating the money towards that. But I think it more than me thinking about honoring my family in a certain way, uh, I suddenly started to think that I was part of a much bigger cause. And that was something that struck the chord for me. It resonated really well with me and my wife both. And we decided that from now on, we are going to support this foundation only. And yes, we haven't done a lot, but I think so far we've planted around 300 trees through you guys, which is not much, but still something that we are proud of. So, talking about the number of trees, sir, that takes me to my next question. Like, Sankalptaru, obviously, in the last 10 years has come a long, long way. So, just for the sake of the audience, roughly how many trees has the foundation planted and how many farmers has the foundation supported?
So, I mean, first of all, thanks for your humble contribution. I didn't know about your patronage towards Sankalptaru, and that's a pleasant surprise for me. Anupam, thanks for that humble gesture from your end. And because we value each and every bit done by our donors, and that goes a long way supporting this mission. So now coming to your question, we have planted and survived more than 7.2 million trees so far. When I say survived as well, because when we started Sankalptaru, we always believed that we will nurture each and every sapling and help it grow into a tree. Because mostly people talk about only number of trees planted, but then they don't talk about how many of them have survived. So our focus is on the survival rate of planted saplings as well. So that's one small achievement of ours. And then these trees have been planted across 27 states and UTs in India. And India being a very diversified country, which has a cold desert of Ladakh in the north, and which has the hot desert of Thar in the west, which has deltas of Sundarban or islands of Brahmaputra on the far east, and has coastal belt in the south. So you can imagine, our plantations are quite diverse in nature across these varied geographies. And then some of these toughest terrains as well I spoke about, we have been able to plant and nurture trees so far successfully.
And I think, as far as if I recall correctly, it's been a while since I went to your website, but your website also gives you a certificate or some sort that tells you about how much carbon have you reduced by planting a tree. I think one tree saves you around 50 kilotons of carbon or something along those lines.
Yes. So at an average, about 35 kgs of CO2 offset per year you contribute to. And then in a lifetime, depending upon the tree, 0.5 tons to 1 or 1.5 tons per tree. That's the offset you achieve by planting a tree. So that's also one of the contribution which goes in terms of capturing carbon or greenhouse gases emissions, GHG emissions, which are becoming very challenging in current times. So that's how the contribution helps our donors.
That's fantastic. Just thinking about the numbers, because I'm a data person, if I just multiplied 35 into 7.2 million, how many zeros are we looking at in terms of carbon saving per year? That is phenomenal, right? We talk about government initiatives and large corporations trying to be carbon neutral, and they all talk about a lot of things. But just looking at the initiatives that your foundation has delivered and the amount of carbon that has been saved as a result via natural processes, like trees are the most natural thing we can do to remove carbon from the environment. Just on that notion, and this is one simple example, just want to share it with the audience that you guys can do your math. 7.2 million times 35. That's a lot of zeros. That's a lot of carbon reduced from the environment. So hats off to you, sir, and your team. moving on, I mean, my next question was going to be about the impact on the environment, etc. But I think I've sort of answered that question already, and you've answered that question. So I'll jump on to the next one. So you said that you plant trees in several different areas across around 27 states and in all sorts of terrains. So how do you end up selecting the sites for these plantations?
Yeah, that's a good question. Given the diversity we operate in, because one need to be very, very cautious, before selecting any site. So basically, whenever we are, you know, choosing these options or selecting these plantation locations, we look at the possible or potential impact we could make to the region. That's one. So, when I talk about impact, of course, in my earlier reply, I spoke about the impact, the environmental impact in terms of carbon capture. It happens, but then if you talk about socio-environmental impact, it is far beyond that. So talking about environmental impact, the other parameters like you help in fresh air, bringing down the pollution levels, then you generating oxygen, then uh, attracting rain, then helping the water table, right? The list is endless if you see the advantage of trees, I must say. So, and coming to the socio-economic part of it is the increase in the livelihood of farmers, the employment being generated by means of people who are engaged in nurturing trees, maintaining them. So it's really phenomenal that way. So one is impact. We look at the impact which is possible through tree plantation. The other one is if we are doing these conservation activities in harmony with nature or not, because we should not be planting any invasive species which might harm the local ecosystem. So we are cautious about that factor as well. So it's a very scientific approach which we take, planting locally grown or native trees, which will help the flora and fauna in long term. So these kind of studies are done by us, and then we select. Oh, okay, this is the place for us to be in, and let's go ahead impacting the ecosystem in a positive way. So that's how we go about it, Anupam.
So, sir, I mean that's quite commendable. But just to deep dive into it further, just for the sake of layman people like me, uh, trying to understand, like when you are saying that you need to, obviously when you're looking at an area, you need to survey the area, you need to understand the area, the soil composition, also the environmental factors. And to your point, you obviously have to study the local flora and fauna just to understand what grows, what doesn't grow, what can survive, what can potentially impact the environment. So it's like a detailed work, right? It's not something you just walk into a park someday and figure out I'm going to plant that tree. That's not how it works, obviously. So the team that supports you to do that, what kind of team do you have, and do you get any support from the local agencies like government and the local panchayats?
Okay. So yes, I must answer it with a statement that Sankalptaru is people's movement. When we call it people's movement, it's the movement by the people for the people. I'm very glad that uh, generous and humble donors like Anupam, like you, are part of that. So when I say people's movement, people like you have been supporting this cause for the sake of other people, which are like our farmer beneficiaries and all. We always believe that more and more people getting part of it, becoming part of it, is more impactful for us. Now, coming back to your question, where how we go about selecting sites, who are the people behind making the decisions. One is, of course, since we use a lot of science and technology in our operations, so there are domain experts in our team experts from forestry, experts from horticulture, experts from watershed management, experts from other domains as well, which help us with the scientific approach we take. Second is um, understanding it from nature. And I always believe that nature is the best teacher. So we look at the local geography, topography, demographics, and all, which helps us in the decision making process. That's second. Third is our work, which goes in very close coordination along with the communities. And I must say that communities have wealth of knowledge. You go to tribal areas, people's residing there have wealth of knowledge about what grows well, how to grow scientifically, which season is the best one to grow, how to grow it in harmony with nature. So we leverage that. I must say the legacy, right, of knowledge which lies with the people out there, be it elderly people and all. So when we leverage that knowledge, of course, it's like community participation. It's in community participation mode, which helps us in succeeding further. So these are some of the um, stakeholders which help us in selecting the right species for the right locations.
That actually made me a bit nostalgic because, growing up, my father, just for the sake of the audience, my father was and is an agriculture scientist. So I sort of grew up in areas where there was a lot of agriculture research activity happening. So I'm not an expert nowhere near, but I do recall my childhood. Most of my childhood was planting all sorts of seasonal vegetables. So my dad would give me a khurpa and a powder and say, go get digging. So that used to be our weekend activity. You're digging, you're making plows and, planting all sorts of potatoes, tomatoes, bindi and all that. So growing up, we used to do that. But one of the things that we learned was the people who used to work within the scientific community or within the organization, they were a lot of the local people who've been living there for generations. And to your point, the amount of knowledge they brought to the table without any degree or diploma or anything, they would say things like, oh, it's this season, this will not work. Like you can't grow potato this season. Why? Because there's too much cold weather, there's too much rain, the soil is not ready. Now, back then, being a child, I never understood. I was like, I don't know how he's talking rubbish or whatever. Didn't quite pay much attention. But then now that you've said that, it sort of brings back the memory that how the hell did that person know if this particular vegetable is going to grow this time of the year or not, right? So that's actually quite an interesting thing, and people don't necessarily think about these things. But generational knowledge and local knowledge is quite important. And I think your foundation has utilized it in a very efficient manner, I would say. So, sir, what I'll do is... Sorry, go on.
Thank you, yes. And that makes... Yeah. And that makes me equally nostalgic, Anupam. In fact, my father was an agricultural scientist, a plant pathologist, though I do not include it as part of my formal introduction. But then, yes, definitely, as you rightly pointed out, farmers or the people, the native people, indigenous people, they have wealth of knowledge. And when it's mingled with science, the results are phenomenal.
Absolutely. If I take the example of Australia, right? I mean, when the Britishers came here in the early 16th, 17th century, they tried to utilize the local knowledge of the indigenous people. And, without them, I don't know what the history could have been, but the support from the indigenous people, the knowledge they acquired from them, I'm sure they would have been beneficial to them in some way, shape or form, which isn't mentioned in a proper way, unfortunately, but that's a different topic. I don't want to get into the political side of things, but I think indigenous knowledge is important, and I think you and I both are acknowledging that. So Thank you for that. Moving on to probably taking the technical aspect of what you said, right? That technology, the importance of technology in what your foundation does. I've seen recently in your posts on different platforms the use of drones. And also, your platform offers a very good interactive website where people can track where they have planted the trees via a geolocation.
Yeah.
Can you please elaborate a bit more on how it all works and the challenges you face?
Right. Great. So probably I'll answer it with some of the examples, and then how it all started and how it was relevant to the sector, as I earlier mentioned. So we really wanted to create transparency in the entire planting process, because always tree planting has remained number focused. People talk about planting million trees in an hour, but then we don't know how many of them have survived next year, what all happened to them, how are they growing, where all they were planted. So there are few unanswered questions in the mind of potential donors. So when we started off, we thought, okay, if we can really create a transparent platform, which not only offers convenience to folks to plant tree from anywhere in the world, but then they should know where exactly their plant was placed or sapling was planted, and then what kind of sapling it was, who was going to take care of it. So we thought if technology can help us in that, so we created an online platform called Sankalptaru.org. We created a mobile app. I'm talking about 12 years back, especially in Indian context, mobile app usage and all that was picking up, because we had smartphone introduced around that time, or the internet connectivity was picking up, talking about 2G, 3G, and that transition which happened later. So, this mobile app we gave to our operations coordinator, who used to photograph and geotag all these trees which are planted. And then the mail goes to the donor saying, hey, a few days back you planted saplings with us. Here is the location of your sapling. Here's a photograph of your sapling. So each and every tree which we plant on Sankalptaru platform is geotagged, photographed, has a profile. Like we most of us have social media profiles. Each and every tree at Sankalptaru has a profile of its own, by which you can see where exactly it's located, and through the updation of satellite imagery, you can in fact see the green dots coming at the locations where we are operating. And then as we graduated further, we in fact introduced the concept of blockchain, so that further transparency can be introduced to this entire initiative. Our donors are assured about the records which we are sharing with them. Each tree profile is unique. It's been tokenized. It can't be edited. And then, no one sapling has been tagged or geotagged twice or something like that. So we always thought, okay, this will help us in basically having the trust among our donors, and then also making it more popular. The technology adoption really helped us, Anupam. And coming to your next reference of using, suppose, drones and other technological applications in our operations, we realized that a few places, especially in Himalayan ranges, humanly it's not possible to mobilize saplings or people to plant saplings or do tree plantation activities in those terrains. Then we came up with a program called BGN. So this BGN or drone basically flies to the landslide affected areas and then bombards seed balls. And then, basically we have this seed ball, bombarding program there, or bombing program there, and that helps us in creating vegetation at those far-flung places where humanly it might not have been possible otherwise. So that's one initiative. And then recently we have come up with IoT initiative of ours. We have named it IoTree. So basically, that is also helping us in getting live feed from the plantation locations or the forest which we are creating. So you can see the live feed of weather, not only weather forecast, but then live feed of soil and other conditions, prevailing conditions inside our forest on a very regular basis. So every 15 seconds, we fetch that data from there, which not only helps us in creating transparency that if Sankalptaru crew is watering the saplings on a regular basis by looking at the moisture levels of the sensors, that's one. But then it is also helping us in our scholarly or scientific research, how we have made an impact to a place in a span of suppose 5 years. What was the AQI level on day zero when we started our operations at a particular place, and then how we have impacted positively over a period of 5 years in terms of temperature, soil conditions, AQI levels. There are various other parameters too. So the idea is that yes, we create transparency, we create visibility, we take a very scientific approach in maintaining, nurturing the trees, and then help the entire scholarly world by sharing the data with them.
That's wonderful. I mean, I didn't know that, first of all, and thanks for sharing it. I mean, it's in true sense like a very good utilization of technology in the field of agriculture research and the work that you guys are doing. And just listening about how much effort your foundation puts into ensuring the transparency of this whole process end to end. I mean, it gives you a lot of confidence that, the work that's being done is being done with the purest of intentions. So I think just for the listeners, I think this is one thing you guys can take home, that, this foundation is doing everything they can to protect the trees, to make sure they survive, and also doing their best to support the environment. So please, I urge you all to support this foundation as best as possible. So slightly different question in terms of, obviously, you have definitely heard of this Chipko movement. And I recently saw a post where I think you met the initial founding member of the Chipko Andolan. How was that experience? Could you share that with us, please?
Okay, so it goes back to my introduction again, Anupam. So I come from a place called Gopeshwar in Chamoli district of Uttarakhand state here in India. That's the place, near which the Chipko movement started. Okay, so probably that had a very deep impact on me, while I was a kid, listening about the stories which might have happened in the past as part of Chipko movement. So that was probably one of the inspiration as well for me to start something like Sankalptaru. Now, coming to this, yes, Mr. Chandri Prasad Bhatt, who was one of the spearheading member of Chipko movement, I have seen him very closely since we are from the same town. Yes, one thing is for sure, that look at the commitment and passion people had towards conserving and preserving their natural heritage in those times. Okay, where people had very limited resources and could have earned those resources by letting their trees go away or chopped off, right? But they were very, very passionate. They were very, very sentimental about preserving their natural heritage, and they really fought it selflessly, I would say. So definitely, I believe there's a lot to learn, especially not only for the environmentalists like me, but for the entire world. I believe we must learn that how how we should be saving our natural heritage or the ecosystem around us.
That's beautiful, sir. So we're reaching to the tail end of the conversation now, but I'll ask you some last questions. I mean, just in the closing also, where do you see Sankalptaru in 10 years' time from now?
Okay, so I mean, before I answer that, let's foresee ourselves where we would be in 10 years, given the speed of deforestation, given the speed of uh, pollution's level around us, or given the speed of the waste uh, management is becoming a menace, around us globally, I would say. So where do we stand? Certainly, it's a very alarming situation. Scientists around the world have been already talking about it, that global warming and climate change are having their hard hitting impact on us. You might have witnessed the latest torrential rains in Dubai, the kind of havoc it created. So it's impacting everyone, right? And I believe as we face these challenges over a period of time, it might become very frequent. So there is an acute need to fight against these challenges, respect nature, and then have something very, I would say, sustainable for our future generations. So, I mean, we are among the planetary emergency, I must say that. So, now coming to Sankaltaru's contribution in fighting this global crisis, I believe that's Sankaltaru. We are very much passionate about fighting this challenge together, along with the donors, along with the communities which are backing us, and then as this crisis becomes bigger and more challenging, I believe our fight is going to be more intense with adoption of technology by backing of people or donors like you. Definitely, we are going to scale it up and do our best so that we are there to say to show the face to our future generations that yes, we didn't let it go, but then we fought it to the best to have that legacy for our future generations.
That's a commendable sentiment, sir. I really echo with that. I do think about sometimes that, look, we have lived, our generation at least has lived our lives to a degree, like, we're all pretty much in our mid 40s and stuff. But thinking about our kids and their kids, it sends a chill down your spine. You're like, oh, what's going to happen to their generations? We would be long gone, but no matter how much money and luxury we leave behind, that's not going to help them in any way. So what do we do now that will help the future generations? And that's a big question, and that kind of leads to the next question that I wanted to ask. How can people support your cause? Right? I mean, I understand there is a donation thing, but what about volunteering? What about generally spreading the awareness, helping the foundation in a true sense?
Good. I mean, good question again, Anupam, and it resonates with the same spirit which I mentioned earlier. It's a people's movement. We are definitely looking for supporters, not only in the capacity of donors, because Sankalptaru is one of the organization which really values the contribution in any form. It could be as a donor, it could be as an advisor, it could be as one of the beneficiary of the program, it could be in any form. Now, coming to the various engagement opportunities which we offer, apart from the being a donor, of course, our volunteering program is quite holistic in nature. We leverage expertise of people in various areas remotely. Um, that's one. Second is, the kind of programs we have tailored. So, I mean, our punchline is we don't just plant. So then what do we do? So basically, we have tailored our programs in a way that they focus on various demographics. So suppose for kids, we have a program, storytelling programs, or we have in fact podcasts for them, stories which can very much relatable to them and inspire them to take up environmental conservation as one of the hobby. So for that particular segment we have a program, and planethero.sankalptaru.org is the link, which can be accessible. And I believe younger generation might find it quite interesting. That's one. That's third. Then we have, in fact, internship programs as well, which we offer to our student community, basically, which they can take up in person or remotely. So that's how we engage with different strata of people or people from all the walks of life. And so they can support this program wherever they are, remotely or in person, in whatever capacity they wish to.
That's wonderful, sir. And just for the sake of the audience, I will try and include the links where you can reach out to Sankalptaru Foundation in whichever capacity you want to be a part of that. It will be in the description. So please feel free to click on that link and reach out and provide your support in whichever way you can. So on that note, sir, we are at the end of our conversation. And I would really like to thank you for your time and all the valuable insights that you provided. To be honest, after speaking to you and getting all the other details that you shared today, I feel even more recharged and, full of confidence that what you guys are doing is really, really helping us and the planet. And I definitely would love to be a part of the movement and in more ways than I have done before. And I'll also personally try to be, more proactive in educating the future generations wherever I can. So
wonderful. Thank you, Anupam, for having me here. And it was so nice to interact with you, especially with the person whom I'm now meeting virtually after almost 2 decades, I believe. So thanks for all your generous contributions. Thanks for all your contribution, which you do in the capacity of this podcast host. So thank you so much. It was wonderful speaking with you. And thanks for doing your bit. And I'm sure I was able to give some insight into the program, which through Sankalptaru we manage.
Definitely, sir. And I think this was just the beginning of our conversation. I'm sure we'll try and bring you to this podcast again in future and discuss some other topics, perhaps.
Of course. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.